Hey, David here, and welcome to My Extra Mile, Conversations with David T.S. Wood. Great show today. This lady is a powerhouse, really. She's going to get into some great mind stuff, how to not or stop giving your pain meaning. But she really gets into the weeds on creating a successful mindset around your side hustle and residual income, my favorite. It's a very, very sexy income. Listen, it's just going to be a great show, so enjoy it. I do want to call out our comment winner, Margie Barrett. She said today had the opportunity to watch both of Emily's critical skills training, and she said it took me 3 hours because I kept stopping and writing notes. She said, really great information. Thanks, Dave. So Emily, thank you so much for your comment. Please subscribe. Click on the little bell so you're notified when a new show comes out, and get involved in the conversation. I promise I'll read every single one of them. Become one of our comment winners and enjoy today's show with the incredible Susan Sly. I want to welcome there's only one of her, but I actually believe she's one of triplets because she gets so much done. The wonderful Susan Sly. Hi, Susie.
Well, hey, David, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to acknowledge everyone who's taken the time to listen to the show. The goal with the Extra Mile, obviously, is to inspire all of you to figure out where in your life is that place for you to go the extra mile. So, David, thank you for everything you're doing in the world. I'm so happy to be here. You mentioned COVID, so I am at home. If I'm interrupted by kids, pets, who knows, whatever, just, there might be more background noise. Just, it's good.
Yeah, this is the times. But, again, what I'm fascinated by, you've been a student of life, but a student of learning. And, people look at you today and they see you're so put together in so many ways, brilliantly, your passion, your humor, your as a mother, as a leader, all these different areas of life. But I want you to take us back and just sort of how many years ago where it wasn't this way. Because, the thing about the extra mile is you've consistently taken those little steps that have given you the life you have. And there are people listening to us right now that want what you have, but they really don't know the path and they don't understand this area of consistency. So let's go back. When you weren't all put together, what was life like before you started this path and really understood how to create success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll open it by answering, I was in a hotel room many years ago in LA, and I was going to the next day do a speaking event with John Assaraf, who wrote The Answer, and some of the other guys from The Secret. Right. And I couldn't sleep, so I turned on, it was A&E biography, and Natalie Cole was on, and I'll never forget, she said the following: you only see the glory, you don't know the story. Right. And David, it's the same, could be said of you. You're an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you're a top trainer, a speaker, a podcast host, a dad, and you've lived some amazing aspects of your life that would challenge a lot of people. And in the face of challenge, we can either give up or get better. So if you look at anyone who's achieved anything, they've had their challenges, but they chose to get better, and they chose to stop giving meaning to their pain. So I was born someone who was fighting for her life from day one. It was a blackout in Ontario, Canada, where I was from. So all of Toronto, David, and all of New York blacked out the night I was born. That might have been an omen. And,
that's how much power you have. All the lights go on. She's here.
Yeah. And, I was born and unable to breathe. So they didn't know if I would live, and they put me on a respirator. And I survived that. And I really think in those early years, I told myself a story that life would always be hard. I would always have challenges. I'd always have to survive. So of course, going through life, I was bullied, and I left home when I was 15 years old. I started in university when I was 16. I lied about my age because I was so embarrassed. And there I was at 19, a full degree, living on my own, starting my own career, thinking I had all the answers, and I didn't. I went into business, and I amazingly acquired a business when I was 24. I negotiated for the last part of the loan while I was in labor with my daughter Avery. So 24 years old, in labor on this blue Nokia pay-as-you-go phone, trying to get the last $10,000 to buy this health club. And I ended up buying the health club and was a millionaire on paper at that early age. And the interesting thing, Wayne Dyer used to say, I knew Wayne, and he always used to say, ego stands for edging God out. And I had a bigger ego than I had common sense because I was such a prover. I was such a fighter. I was so scrappy. And when that's the archetype one is holding on to, you will always attract situations, whether it's romantic relationships, whether it's jobs, where you get yourself backed into a corner because you have to fight and prove yourself. So I was such a prover for a long time. And eventually it got exhausting. I was a professional athlete, this business owner. I was on television and radio. And eventually it caught up with me. And it was very humbling. So in January of 2000, I was diagnosed with progressive multiple sclerosis. And I was told I would be in a wheelchair in 10 years and dead in 20. Well, that was 20 years ago, and I'm not dead yet unless David's interviewing a ghost, which he's not. And then 3 days later, my marriage fell apart. 16 weeks later, I lost my business, and I ended up homeless on my brother-in-law's sofa. And there I was, a single mom, and essentially, David, that moment was so important to me because I realized that my entire life had been a lie. I didn't need to be the fighter. I didn't need to be the prover. I didn't need to be the island doing everything myself. And so I got humble. When you're homeless, you get humble pretty fast, David, as you would know. Yeah. And I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. And I think the biggest thing I would say to anyone that is going through something, whether it's a medical diagnosis, a divorce, infidelity, the loss of a business, loss of a job, is that in that moment, you have a decision. And I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. You can choose to not give meaning to your pain so you can give purpose to your passion. And that's what I did. So for the last 20 years, I started turning my life around. I became very passionate about empowering women, especially.
I forgot to mention that in your intro, the work you do in Africa, and not just in Africa, but in, female trafficking and the education of women, because we know that when you educate a woman, you educate the children that she has. So, the way to really stop some of the things that are happening in the world that are so horrendous is by educated women raising educated boys that will then in turn, treat their villages and whatever. So I know a lot of the work you've done there, especially in Malawi and other places, but I forgot to mention that. Just amazing. But sorry interrupting. I just want to give some, that's it. I mean, it really is what you've done. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Well, David, even think about your own journey, right? You experienced pain, but there was a point when you said, I'm not giving purpose to this pain so I can make room to have room for my passion and give my purpose there, right? And your passion for training up leaders and empowering people. And in all the years we've been friends, I mean, you're that person who, anyone who's in your life, you just make them a better person. And I think there are a lot of people listening to this that are still holding on to a lot of pain. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote the book, The Scarlet Letter. And when I wrote the book, The Have-It-All Woman, I talked about how as women, we will often carry around the scarlet letters, just like Hester Prynne. She wore the A for adulterer. So a lot of us carry around the D for divorce, the, F for fat, the whatever, the U for ugly, the, whatever. We spend enough money in America on plastic surgery that would eradicate homelessness. Like, what kind of crazy is that? When you think about that, because we're wearing these scarlet letters and we feel so damn inadequate. And I love, chacun sa goût, to each his own. Like, if you want to get work done, if you want to, whatever it is you want to do, but it's not going to change who you are. You have to look within and let something go in order to create that clearing to move forward.
And there's a lot of people right now, you think about, I'll mention it, we're during this COVID-19 lockdown, and it's been weeks. And so, we've got a lot of people who are immobilized in some ways, and you see different people dealing with it differently. But obviously a lot of people who are financially strapped and week to week or month to month living, this has been, or still continues to be, quite scary. But then there's this prospect of 800 million jobs being taken away coming up. And I really want to sort of lead us into this conversation about, the world you've come from. And we will continue to talk about this mindset, because I really love what you're talking about. And you and I are the same, right? I left school at 15, and really, how someone can start to reinterpret their lives and understand that, going through those valleys, if they're in the valley right now, they're going to look back, like both of us have done, look back at those valleys and go, thank goodness those valleys were there, because from those valleys, we've been able to create this. It's almost right.
And let's jump in there, because I think there are going to be people listening to this who have lost their job or have lost their businesses. So at the beginning of COVID, one of the stats was 3% of restaurants would close permanently. And then it was 11% of restaurants, just one industry. And then people who've been furloughed, people who have been laid off. And the biggest thing that, is on my heart to share, when I walked into my health club and there was a padlock on the door and I was shut out in front of all of my students. I was supposed to teach this spinning class, and it was Good Friday of the year 2000. I was so humiliated, and I want to run away. And I know some of you listening, you want to run away. And I think that one of the greatest pieces of advice I received during that time was, Susan, figure out who you are. Beyond your job, your title, your relationship, your athletic stuff, just figure out who you are. And if you can take it down to one word, and I did. I went out, David, for a really long bike ride, and it was a snowy kind of day where the road was fairly damp, but it wasn't slippery, and the snow was just turning into water as it landed. And I rode for hours, and I was like, God, who am I? And the word that came back was teacher. And it just gave that time for me in my soul to say, okay, I've lost a business. I was a millionaire. I was that person who walked into restaurants and they gave me free meals. I was on television every day and people wanted my autograph. And it was all such false, just BS, right? I bought into this delusion. And when all of my staff lost their jobs because my business partner and I were financially irresponsible, I said, you know what, this is never going to happen again. So first I needed to know who I was. And the second thing was I started to pick my life up, and I wrote my resume. I reached out to some of my clients who I had helped. I said, will you write me some letters of endorsement? I got humble. I went and looked for jobs. And you might have to do that initially. You might have to go find a job that's not in your field, below your pay grade. And then I did one of the most important things. I said, I will never start a business again where I will borrow money for that business. From now on, all of my businesses, I will bootstrap them. And that particular summer, that's when I met a person who had changed my life. And she got me reading books like Think and Grow Rich and Anthony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And she introduced me to a different business concept, one that was different for me. And that went on to change my life. But my message I would say to everyone is pick yourself up, get humble, let it go, figure out what your strengths are, figure out who you are, and just move forward.
Yeah, I love what you said. There's two parts of what you said there, which I really want to just sort of highlight. One is, when I think back to my journey and each time I've walked away from success because of typically, where I've been the head of a company and like the board of directors, I didn't align with the direction or how they were treating their people. So I walked away, and we're talking about, massive amounts of money. But I always was able to just walk away and the next day start again. I didn't wait. I never went through a week or 2 weeks or a month. It was just like, and it wasn't like I had a status. It was just, hey, I'm going to start over and with this new energy and this new passion towards life and let go of what just happened. I'm not holding on to the past, wishing that I'd stayed and wishing that the fact is, hey, it was the end of a time and able to move on. So that was really important what you said about just getting out, getting humble again and just starting over again. What do you think when you look at the world right now and you say, because you're successful in multiple areas in business, and you're really are a great leader, but you're also a leader that's continued to learn. You've mentioned a number of books you've read, and you've mentioned this sort of a teacher, but I would argue that you're also a great student. Is that right now you're going to MIT. And you're continuing to learn. It's like there's always in front of you this desire to teach, but also I think this desire to learn. Talk about how some people right now are sitting at home, could be in the learning stage and learning and embracing something so new so that they can accelerate right out the blocks when this thing's lifted, right?
Absolutely. Well, MIT is a funny story. And I was just thinking, the show is called The Extra Mile, not The Extra Pity Party. Guys, the pity party's over. You gotta move on. The MIT is funny. So I was raised by my dad, a single dad, and my dad was an engineer. And my dad worked on the team that did the pacemaker, the microprocessor. So when I was back in the 80s, I was like, Dad, I want video games. He's like, program them yourself, right? And I'm like, ooh, okay. So I was coding. I was that weird kid. I was in the Dungeons and Dragon Club and the chess club and coding club and all that stuff. Anyway, my dad was always like, Susan, you will go to MIT. Well, one thing my dad didn't realize is that I was horrid at math, David. Like I failed calculus in university. And the second time I took it, I barely got by, but I have a science degree and I was still coding. And one thing I want to say to everyone, don't let someone tell you you're bad at something because then you start to believe it. So I figured out a way to get a science degree without being really good in calculus. And so the whole MIT thing was kind of in the back of my mind. And then a few years ago, my dad almost died. And I thought, if I could do one thing to make my dad happy, maybe I could go to MIT. So as I serendipitously...
Some of us buy flowers, some of us, phone call, write a letter. No, you go get a degree. I love it.
Well, and I'm so weird and geeky anyway, and I'm proud of it. So I became the co-CEO of an artificial intelligence company, and I'm sitting in meetings, and it's me as a woman and all men, and we're talking about Kubernetes and edge to cloud computing, and I hadn't been in tech since 91, and I thought, where's the place I can learn this stuff the fastest that is going to challenge me? And literally, David, I was on LinkedIn, and this MIT thing pops up, and it goes, AI and machine learning, 6-week deep dive. And I'm like, okay. So I sign up for this course, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, good Lord, we're talking about deep learning, and, I'm learning about how Facebook does their algorithms and all these different things. So then I finished that, and I felt like a rock star, and I kind of cried because I called my dad, and I'm like, I'm one down. And so now I'm doing like a 3-year program to do a certificate in management, but it's for C-suite people who run tech companies. So currently I'm taking a course in machine learning. So it's an extra 16 hours a week. So I get up at 4 a.m. and doing the technical work. Then I have to write technical essays. And I feel like I'm the least smart person in the whole group. And I think that's healthy to feel, not from putting myself down, but it's that hungry place. Like, David, like you said, when you leave a company, you step away from a board and you go, okay, here I am. I'm ready to learn. I'm starting all over again. And so it's been really fun, and I'm a nerd. So.
So with that being said, though, as you're looking at the way the world's changing, we're looking at, people being forced to stay home right now. We know there's a prediction of 800 million people that will lose their jobs. What's your vision now as you're starting to see what's going to be happening? And again, you're in the sort of forefront in Silicon Valley right now working with AI, but what do you see? And someone listening right now, what's the world that they want to start preparing for? if they haven't got their ducks in a row in the sense of, their financial house in order, which is if you look across North America and across Australia and New Zealand, I mean, most people are 1 or 2 months away from being broke. And that's just the reality. And I'm talking about people who drive nice cars and have nice houses. They're in the same situation because they're so heavily leveraged. So what is this new world that's emerging? That's kind of, because this has never happened before. We've never had it where the entire world was connected by one thing and forced to sort of stay home and sort of start to look at life through a new lens, right? So what's your prediction? What's your thoughts?
Sure. So in 2019, McKinsey, which is a big analytics company, released a very extensive report that said robotics, AI, machine learning would displace 800 million jobs globally by the year 2030. And so the way a lot of people interpreted that was, oh, it's going to displace like factory jobs. They'll just be robotic arms and things like that. Some of what people think machines can do right now is very inaccurate. We're not in the movie levels yet. Like they're just training robots right now to be able to grab different types of objects. So if the object is breakable, like a glass ball, can it grab it in a different way than it would, say, a flask that could fall on the ground and not break, right? So the part of that was what people didn't understand about the report is these following jobs were the ones that were likely to first be replaced by machines, or at the very least, machines working with fewer humans. So CPAs, teachers. People are thinking truck drivers. Yes, that's happening too. We're talking about educated people who probably have $100,000 to $300,000 in student loan debt, and COVID just accelerated that. So here's what we're seeing. Avery, who my oldest daughter, she's at ASU. Suddenly, she's not on campus. She's finishing her senior year all on Zoom. So what does ASU find? This is interesting. We suddenly took the largest university in the United States and brought all the students online. We could maybe have fewer professors now. We could maybe have fewer classrooms. Our CapEx, OpEx, that's all changing. So I actually predict, David, it's going to accelerate faster. People said, well, we're going to live in a world.
This is driven by the bottom line as well, because that's the sense you have. Anyone who's in business like us, you're looking at people now that are saying, hey, we're just saving a whole ton of money here, and they're looking, it really has forced a new lens onto people's eyes to say, well, do we need to do business this way? Do we? And they're finding out, well, maybe we don't. Maybe this overhead, because a lot of brick and mortar is all overhead, right? So, yeah.
And so we're living in a very interesting world, but there's a lot of opportunities as well. So a couple other things that we are going to see. So let's talk about autonomous vehicles. There's still some challenges with autonomous vehicles. So we have partially autonomous vehicles. So in a few years, when you do your DoorDash or whatever, the car will go to the restaurant, it will get the food for you, and it will just bring it to you, but there will be no human in the loop, it's called. When you, right now we're seeing radiologists as an example that oftentimes the machine learning program can read the scans much more accurately than the physician. So there are jobs that are not going to exist in the future, just as there are jobs that exist now that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. Social media manager is one. Just as an example, there are a lot of different ones. Data scientist, that job was just beginning a couple decades ago. Now it's very common. Oh, your kid's coding at school. It's part of the curriculum. We're living in a rapidly changing world. And with that, there is a lot of opportunity. So here's the following thing. So people who were making money, say, driving Uber, that's not going to be a thing very soon. And we're already seeing that with legislation. COVID is changing the game with things like Airbnb, people who are making money doing that. I know someone who owns several Airbnbs. Guess how much they're making right now, David? That would be none, right? Yeah. So we're going to see a shift where people are looking for more side hustle money. And in fact, there's a study that was published and written about in Forbes where 63% of households with over $80,000 in income have a side hustle. if you can believe it. So we're going to see a surge in side hustle, especially coming out of COVID. People who are Gen X who have student loans, they're going to have to pay them off. People who are trying to retire, so the late Gen Xers, they don't have the same amount of money in their accounts. We'll probably see a big economic rebound, but not in the traditional stocks that you would have purchased. So I love this time we're living in. I think it's fascinating. I think it's a very exciting time. And now with some of the things, even right now, David, you can see the top of Mount Everest for the first time in 30 years because not as many people are driving. And do you think whether someone's an environmentalist or someone's all about the bottom line, we're ever going to go back? Some of the things that are happening because of COVID would have happened anyway. We just accelerated the next 10 years and some things are not going to change. And, I could go on and on about how the workplace is going to change. I was just in a meeting earlier today. Masks will be legislated. We're all going to wear masks for a long time. When we leave our house, there are going to be stricter fever detection happening all over the place. Like the stuff you saw in the movies in terms of that stuff where they're tracking people and all of it, if that scares you, get off social media because they're tracking you all over the internet.
Yeah. Let's go back to this side hustle. And I know that, you're doing some interesting work in this, the AI sector, which I'd love to touch on as well. But I really want to get back to this side hustle. Someone's listening to us right now and, they're either, because, side hustle, if you give us some examples of that, but one that I'll bring up is of course, network marketing. But because it does allow for, people to create their own economy. But that whole thing about work and people sort of dabbling or people not, treating it like a real business, talk about the mindset of a side hustle, regardless of what people choose. But let's say they chose that. What's the mindset of somebody stepping in there who really says, hey, I'm going to create a side hustle so that I have my own economy. So whatever happens in the world and however strange it gets, and I'm not going to be one of the 800 million, I'm going to have something set up that I can look after my family and I can lead an extraordinary life, right? What does that take?
Let's get real. What we're experiencing now is just an amplification of 2007 to 2009. We had SARS and we had the recession. Then a few years later, we had H1N1. Friends listening, hello, this is not the last epidemic, pandemic, economic downturn. I want to give you a few things if you're considering a side hustle. One, given everything we've gone through, it should be something you can do from home. Number two, it has to obviously be something you can do online. Number three is it must align with your values. Number four, you shouldn't borrow money to start it. You should bootstrap that sucker. And number five, don't leave your day job until you have at least 6 months in the bank of money that you can pay yourself and also be able to literally walk away and support yourself with benefits and things like that. So when I lost everything that year, 2000, that I did get humble, the person I met, she was involved in the network marketing industry. And I was fascinated by her because here she was, David, driving a red BMW and could just do whatever she wanted. She was going on fabulous trips. I met her at a women's networking group and I was like, what is it you do? And she tried to explain residual income and she tried to draw circles and do all this stuff. I wasn't getting it. It took me 8 months to finally conceptualize what it was she was trying to share with me. And when I started to understand the industry and I looked at it like any other industry, I realized the power in it for the following reasons. One, people don't have to have special degrees or skills. One. Number two, the startup cost is so low. So when you think about it, it should be something you can afford to bootstrap yourself and not, take out loans or anything like that. Number three, really and truly, the personal development aspect of network marketing is absolutely incredible. You can't grow your income if you don't grow yourself. right? And so as I began to go from someone who was curious about the industry to dabbling in the industry to starting to treat it like a legitimate side hustle, reading the books, understanding the numbers, going through the process, it's just network marketing is like the greatest algorithm ever written. And so, it really changed my life. It changed my family's legacy. And here's a fun fact, David, every business I own, network marketers are involved in it some way, shape, or form. In my AI company, our lead investor is a network marketer, and over 50% of the investors are in network marketing. So there you go.
Well, honestly, it's a highly paid profession for those that treat it like a profession, but it's also a great profession for those part-timers that want a few $100s, $300, $500, $1,000, and how much difference that can make. But when we look at it, a couple of the things, when people make a decision, and you look at, okay, how do I decide what side hustle, which company? Because there's new companies popping up every single day. Let's talk about network marketing again. I mean, there are brand new companies and they spout off all this stuff and they make it sound like it's easier here, or, they've only been around for 5 minutes in the industry. And we know that, looking at a company that's been around for 10 years and proven themselves is an important part of that process. You want to see longevity. I mean, so do you want to talk a little bit about that, about choosing the right home and what certain things we want to really be thinking about in making those choices? Because I do see a lot happening right now where people are getting lured by companies making some, and the ethics of the company are in question, and their claims are obvious claims, and these people don't know, they don't understand how to choose a home. What is important in making that choice?
That's a great question. So I am friends, I'm like you, I make friends everywhere, right? So I'm friends with several top income earners in several different companies. And they have all been with those companies, David, for over 15 years. One friend has been with her company for 30 years, right? And I think her cumulative earnings, have to be, well over $20 million at least, right? Another friend, he's been with his company 36 years. His cumulative earnings are like 56 million. I mean, we're talking a crazy amount of money. So I would say there are 5 things one needs to look for in a network marketing company. So one is making sure the company is not making claims. So claims of cure, that the product cures a disease or an illness, or getting rich quick, because the FDA and the FTC in the United States and Industry Canada and Health Canada in Canada will shut those companies down very quickly. And I see claims a lot. Number 2, it is very important that either the co-founders or upper management have been involved in network marketing before, especially at the distributor level. One of my friends owns a company and he was a distributor. And I remember him back in the days when he was a distributor, and then he and some other distributors, they started a company. And even the company that I'm with was founded by someone who is the top income earner in 3 separate companies. How is someone supposed to get it if they've never lived it? Yeah. Right? So that would be the second thing. The third thing is there ample training and support? So does the company provide free training resources online, whether it's blogs, audios, videos, that kind of thing? Number 4, do you align, and these are not in any particular order, but you said it, you've got to align with your product or service. So my background was health and nutrition. So I could only be in a company that was health and nutrition because that's my value, right? And then the 5th thing is, here's the question. And this is the big one, because I was in another company before and I've been with my current company for almost 17 years. Do people get cut off out of your compensation line? Because my previous company that I was with, it was 5 levels deep on the front end. And so I had my son, AJ, and I enrolled someone on my level 5, and I would only get paid on his personal volume, David. And then I would be up at 3 a.m. with the baby sleeping on my chest, doing calls with the Philippines, even though the most I could get was, I think, $25 on whatever he ordered. It's because I'm a professional and I take it seriously. But after that company ended up closing, I said never again. I would only work in a company where I wouldn't care, David, if you were on level 25, 30, whatever, that I would help you anyway. But let's face it, there's nothing wrong with making money. right? There isn't, and the reality is, why not benefit from your time that you're investing? So those are the 5 things that I recommend people search for in a company.
Yeah. And then when you look at, this is something I've noticed, that some of these companies are owned by large equity. It's an equity play. So in other words, how important is it if you're going to put your ladder against the wall and say, this is my home, like you've been home for 17 years, you're embedded, and you have your other careers, but you've built a professional income. But, when having owners that really understand it is one thing, but having owners that are in it for the long haul is another, and versus having the companies are owned by equity companies that really don't care about the future. They care about, their exit. And do you want to talk a little bit, because you understand business as well as anybody, but just talk a little bit about that, because I see that out there and I'm thinking, you know what, do people not understand who owns this, and that they really don't care? What they care about is how much they're going to sell it for and how they profit, right?
Yeah, and there are some cases where that can be valuable. David, you and I are both investors. So in network marketing, it is very invaluable. For the people who are investors, or if someone shared the show with you and you're a CPA, or you're a tech investor, or you're something, I want to step out of network marketing for a minute and just give an example. So during the last recession, here are some of the companies that were founded: Uber, WhatsApp, Pinterest, Slack, Instagram, the list goes on and on. They were founded during the recession, and in Silicon Valley, the people who founded them built them to sell. So to give you an example, WhatsApp was founded during the recession and sold 3 years later for $19 billion. Now, how many of you would have liked to have a little bit of equity in that? Because if you're investing in a startup like that, you want them to exit so you make a lot of money. In network marketing, but you're not going to help people.
By the way, I want to stay here for a sec, because your point is, as an investor, absolutely correct. That is exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for, when you put the money in, a seasoned investor, or what's the term we use? Sophisticated investor. We invest with the understanding that, that money, there is a risk. There's always a risk. But we're always looking for the exit, for sure. Now, I just want to sort of say, absolutely. So now when we come back to the network marketing model, what's different?
Yeah, and I want to talk about that for a minute, because never before, my inbox is flooded. I have 2 different startup groups that I invest in, and I also sit on a board of a startup incubator here in Phoenix. So I see a lot of pitch decks. I see a lot of different things every day. And I want everyone to understand, in a scenario like that, I invest, or David invests, they exit, and we get our money and hopefully a return. David and I are happy. We donate some to charity. And that is just, it's what I'm calling like a capstone income. There's a cap on it. It's there. In network marketing, it's different, because the investment at the beginning is very small. So you invest a small amount of money and you invest your time. And your ROI, your return on investment, comes from your investment in people. So there's not one person in the industry of network marketing who didn't have to invest in people and grow people up. The other thing is, you want to think of network marketing, when you understand how to build it and you treat it like a business, it's like recurring dividend income. So you get into network marketing, you hustle, you learn it, you focus, and when you start to make money, it's because you're helping other people make money. So let's do a side-by-side analogy, David. So let's say WeFunder. I'll give this example. So in WeFunder, something came across my desk and I'm like, I'll put $500 in there. Sure, why not? Okay. So when that company exits, my $500 might turn into $1,500. It might turn into $2,500 if I'm lucky, right? If I invest $500 in network marketing and I'm working on myself and I'm consuming my product, I have a consumable, and then maybe the following month I'm consuming maybe, $200 in product, but maybe I made $100 that month. So I'm net, a net gain of, I'm still down 100, but I'm learning, I'm growing. And then the next month I make 300 and I still spent 200. Now I'm up 100. Guys, as that money starts to grow and continues to pay you, it's like having those dividends. And that's the difference. So when I see a lot of sophisticated investors, David, look at network marketing, they don't get it. And I'll finish my little diatribe with this. Warren Buffett.
I'm loving it.
Warren Buffett, love him. So Warren Buffett did the ultimate deal in the last recession, because Warren Buffett obviously always sits on a lot of cash. So in one company he purchased, David, genius, he buys in, I think, for like $10 million. I think 18 months later, I have to look at this deal again. 18 months later, he gets $40 million. And then his last dividend he got, I think, was like $400 million. It was something. It was like a massive amount of money. And you think about what network marketing is, it's a Warren Buffett style deal on a smaller scale. And that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, and the fact is, this idea about work, one of the things I always love to do is bring home the reality. If we're saying the world is shifting, and we know it's shifting, but look where we're sitting right now. But, whether you're listening to this a year from now, the world is changing fast. The side hustle and being able to create an income from home under the rules that you've learned. I mean, but the idea of treating it like a real profession. When did you understand this wasn't kind of just a side hustle, but it actually really was a real profession? Did it take a while for you to sort of get that belief in it? Or how did you approach it in the beginning?
Well, as I said, I'm a real nerd. So one of the things for me was when I first got into network marketing, when I struggled, I took it so personally. So I came from a sales background. I built the #1 sales team for what was then the largest health club chain in the world. And I ran a sales team. I think we had 52 people at the time, and put the most numbers on the board. If you've ever been in professional sales, the moment you win, they raise your quota. So that's the background I came from. And then when I came into network marketing, I started to think about it as a profession when I took that previous model and overlaid it. And I thought, I built something like this before. And here was the thing. The only way I can make my sales quota were if my salespeople made more money. So here's what I did. And I created systems, a recruiting system, an onboarding system, a training system. As soon as I had the money, I hired an assistant. Even to this day in my network marketing business, just to give you a glimpse of everything we do, and I don't have to do all of it, just today alone, Jimmy Smith, who you and I both know. I interviewed him at 9. It was a podcast and a YouTube video by 1. Because my team did that. So we have amazing infrastructure. So right now we do 3 one-hour sessions a week where people come to work and they reach out to people and communicate. We do a weekly training night. I'm still doing, whether it's a 3-way Zoom, a FaceTime, a call, or, whatever. But I've put in place systems because the goal in network marketing is to work smart. And if you really understand that, that's the whole difference. So one of the things that I'm most proud of, that yes, even my startup, we were voted by TechCrunch like one of the top 10 hottest startups in Phoenix. We're about to, depending on when people listen to this, we're going to be featured all over the major media for a project we're doing. But I'm still very proud of my network marketing roots because a lot of the success, and I've been the top producing sales team leader in 3 separate verticals. One is network marketing, one is technology, and one is the health and fitness industry. It all roads lead back to the woman I am today at almost 50. A lot of the skills that I've learned to be able to apply to these different verticals have come from network marketing.
Well, you talked about that. And again, we're going to get close to the end of the show here, but I want to sort of, the person you've become and the people listening right now, because I'm really thinking about that person listening to us right now. And we're talking about this changing world. We're talking about, the fact that, having a side hustle is no longer, it's not just something you want to do. It's something that really you're required to do if you understand what's really happening, is to create that safety of your own economy. But what's something you can leave someone with? Maybe it's a challenge. Maybe it's a, something that to say, look, if you bear this in mind as you step into this journey, this is going to keep you on that even keel. This is going to allow you, knowing that, I mean, you're 15 years in, right? 17 years in.
17, yeah.
And do you know what, can I ask what your cumulative earnings are? And let's, by the way, these aren't numbers we're throwing around wildly. I'm saying them, but Susan's worked incredibly hard over 15 years and had thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations. So I want to say that before anyone starts mixing up the money. But what's been your cumulative earnings in your side hustle?
I won't give the precise number, but it's 8 figures.
8 figures, right?
Yeah, the thing I'm most proud of is that on our team, we've developed 42 millionaires. Half of them came in during the recession. And these are people who've earned a cumulative $1 million plus and really changed people's legacies. I want to leave people with this thought, right? If not this, then what? Again, this is not the last epidemic. We will have a flu season again. We will probably have another pandemic. The economy will go up and down. If not this, then what? Driving Uber isn't going to be a thing in a few years. Just like being a social media influencer isn't going to be a thing in a few years, because the AI is going to look so good that some of the favorite things you follow, influencers on social media, they're going to be AI. We're already starting to see it. One of my favorite things on Twitter is the Fembot chatbot, because she retweets everything I tweet for women in technology. The whole social media manager won't even be a thing, because Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they will all just, you will just have them do your social media for you. So one of the things two things I want to say to everyone: the world's changing now. And as I said, David, this just increased how rapidly the world is changing. If I have NDAs with all of the people I work with, but if I could tell you the meetings I'm having now, it would be mind blowing. And if not this, then what? If not network marketing, then what? Because everything you thought was going to work might not apply to the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Susan, this is just the first we're going to do two shows. This is the first part. So again, I want you to make sure you listen to the second part. We're going to get into some real skills here. But Susan, thank you so much. Again, you're a testimony to what I believe is why this profession, and especially the company you've chosen, is so magnificent, is because of who you've become. You look back and it's all transferable. The skills that you've grown over these 15 years transfers beautifully into your other companies and into your new projects. And I find that remarkable. But remember, everyone listening up, this is called My Extra Mile. It's those small things that Susan's done over these last 15 years consistently, even that 1% incremental growth personally. And you hear right now in this downturn how busy she is with, co-founding new companies and going to school, and 16 extra hours a week on learning something that she's fascinated by, that has now become a very, very, an incredible passion for her. So it's those incremental things. So I wonder, what is it you're doing today that's allowing you to move that needle, that 1%? What's that one thing you're putting into your heart, into your mind, and what are you connecting to? So with that being said, thank you so much, Susan. Thank you.
David.
We appreciate you so much.